Hi, this is Mrs. Zukowski, and this screencast will work with factoring polynomials. Before we get started, we need to understand the concept of a term. A term is a number, a variable, a product of a number times a variable, or the product of a number times several variables. In an algebraic expression, a plus or minus sign starts a new term. So in the expression 5x squared plus 6x plus 2, 5x squared is a term. The plus sign starts the second term, which is 6x, and the second plus sign starts the third term, which is 2. In the second algebraic expression, 7x would be the first term, the minus sign starts a new term, and 1 would be the second term. State the number of terms in each expression below. Pause the computer and answer the question. In the first expression, 17mn minus 2st plus 2, 17mn is the first term, the minus sign starts the second term, 2st, and the plus sign starts the third term, 2. So the expression has 3 terms. In the second expression, 6xyz, there is no plus or minus signs. The 6, the x, the y, and the z are all multiplied together, so that means there's 1 term. In the third expression, 5x to the fourth plus 7x to the third minus 2x squared plus 3x plus 9, 5x to the fourth is the first term. The plus sign starts the second term, which is 7x to the third. The minus sign starts the third term, which is 2x squared. The plus sign starts the fourth term, which is 3x. And the last plus sign starts the last term, which is 9. So altogether, there is 5 terms in the last expression. I also want to review distributive property with you. When you're doing distributive property, you're multiplying the monomial in front of parentheses times each term in the parentheses. In the example below, 7 is outside the parentheses, and there are 3 terms inside the parentheses, so we will be doing 3 multiplications. The first one, 7 times 3x squared, gives us 21x squared. The second multiplication is 7 times the negative 2x, so that results in negative 14x. And the third multiplication is 7 times 6, which results in the positive 42. Multiply the following examples using distributive property. Remember that you will be multiplying the monomial outside the parentheses times the number of terms inside the parentheses. Don't forget to be careful with signs. In the first problem, we're multiplying 3 times the 3 terms inside the parentheses. So 3 times 2x squared gives us 6x squared. Then you're multiplying the 3 times the negative 6x, resulting in negative 18x. And then you're multiplying the 3 times the positive 5, resulting in 15. In the second example, you're multiplying 5x times the 2 terms inside the parentheses. So you have 40x to the third plus 15x squared. In the last example, you're multiplying negative 2 times the 2 terms inside the parentheses, resulting in negative 10x to the fourth plus 2. Factoring a monomial out of a polynomial is reversing the multiplication steps in distributive property. To factor 2x plus 8, I'm going to break down both terms into the prime factors. 2x is 2 times x, plus 8 is 2 times 2 times 2. And then I am looking for what they have in common, which is a 2. The 2 will be factored out, resulting in x plus 4 in the parentheses. You could check this by doing distributive property to make sure that it equals what we started with. To factor 6x to the third plus 8x, my first step will be to break it into prime factors. So I have 2 times 3 times x times x times x plus 2 times 2 times 2 times x. Looking for what both terms have in common, I notice that there's a 2 and also an x, so they will be factored out. In the parentheses, I have what's left, 3x squared plus 4. In the next example, we're going to factor 15y to the fourth plus 6y squared plus 9y. There's 3 terms. Breaking it into primes, I have 5 times 3 times y times y times y times y plus 2 times 3 times y plus times y plus 3 times 3 times y. If you notice, all 3 terms have a 3 and a y in common, so that is what we'll factor out. In the parentheses, what's left is 5y to the third plus 2y plus 3. Try to factor 15xy squared minus 6xy. The solution to this requires breaking it up, looking for the common factors, in this case 3xy. That goes outside the parentheses, and inside the parentheses are what's left in each term. So I have 5y minus 2. Factor 8x to the fourth plus 20x squared plus 18x by yourself. You'll notice all 3 terms have a 2 and an x as a common factor, so that's the greatest common factor, which we'll put outside the parentheses. The remaining factors in each term give you 4x to the third plus 10x plus 9. Distributive property is multiplication. Factoring out a monomial is actually dividing each term by the GCF, or greatest common factor. If you look at this example, 125x to the third minus 5x squared, 125x to the third gives you 5 times 5 times 5 times x times x times x, minus 5x to the squared, which breaks up into 5 times x times x. And what they have in common is a 5 and 2 x's. So outside the parentheses is 5x squared. Now remember, we started with 2 terms, so we need 2 terms in the parentheses. The first term, what's left, is 25x. The second term, everything's been factored out. And remember, we're dividing when we factor it out. So when you divide 5x squared by 5x squared, you're left with a 1. Make sure you put the 1 in your parentheses. Factor this problem on your own. After breaking it up, you notice that the factors that each term has in common is a 2 and an x. That goes outside the parentheses. Inside are the factors that are left in each term. So you have 6x to the fourth plus 2x squared plus 1. Factor this problem on your own. After breaking up both terms, you'll notice that what they have in common is a 7 and 3 x's. So 7x to the third goes outside the parentheses. The remaining factors for each term is x in the first one minus 4 in the second one. Factor this example. you will notice that all three terms have an x in common. That is the only common factor that they all have. So the x goes outside the parentheses, and the remaining factors in each term are 3x squared minus 7x plus 10.